So I'm going to start with use case diagram. When it comes to use case diagram, you have to identify the components of which we have access, use case, and stereotypes or relationships. So here we have a library visitation, design or whatever, and we have the actor here as a student, but here we have a student with ID and a student without ID. And first of all, a student without ID, to be able to visit the library, you have to get your ID, either provisional one or the main ID card. So here, a student without ID card, this is the generalization. So a student without ID card has to print ID, and then after printing the ID, that's where you have access to visit the library, right? So this is what the library does. This is what the system does. The system allows you to visit the lab. The system allows you to visit library or visit study room. So either one or either which of it you choose, you visit. So let's come to the stereotypes or the relationships. So when it comes to printing your ID, it comes with, when you go to the cafe to print your ID, they will definitely request for your login, your site's login. So you providing your site's login is included, is something that is requested. It's not optional thing. You have to provide your logins for that, so that they'll provide your ID for you. And after that, so that becomes include use case. This is the base use case, and this is the extended one. I don't mean it's extend, but extension. There has been an extension, right? So this extension is included. It's a must thing. It has to come. So when you visit the library, after this, when you visit the library or any of this, visiting the library comes with you leaving your bag. You can't send your bag inside the library. Send your bag to the library room. So you have to leave your bag. And you leaving your bag is something you have to do, is a must. So it's include. So anytime you see something that you have to do, you don't have options, it's an include use case. So that one, the arrow points to the include use case you've obtained. But when it comes to visiting washroom, it's not everybody that visits the washroom, visits the library and visits the washroom as well. You can choose to visit the washroom if there's a need. So that becomes an extend use case, and the extend use case, the arrow points to the base use case. The same applies to this place. Here we have the librarian here, and here the librarian, let's say after your section, the librarian just have to search you if you took any book or anything, and searching the students, that's what the librarian does in the system. So therefore, if the librarian finds a book, so this one, it depends on the community, like the audience. University of Ghana, you can't take a book out, right? So that means it's not going to find any book. So it's an include thing. The probability of not finding any book is higher because you can't even send a book out. So it's included that you will not find any book with any students. In a case where the librarians, or there would be mismanagement where students can take a book out, that means there's something wrong somewhere. And if they find a book with the students, then that's going to be extended. If you think the probability of students stealing book is higher and you can steal book easily, that becomes include thing, that is, it's a thing that they do, you see. So we are moving to the activity diagram. When it comes to the activity diagram, you have to identify your swim lanes. These are the swim lanes. Customer swim lane is this. ATM swim lane is this. The bank's swim lane is this. So here the customer starts the section, and then the ATM requests a PIN, and then the customer decides to provide or enter PIN. So a decision has been made here to enter PIN. Then the PIN is processed by the ATM, and the ATM decides to send to the bank to authorize the PIN code, or and then the bank transfers it to the ATM for the ATM to, after authorizing, it gives permission to ATM for ATM to request an amount from the customer to withdraw, Here the customer comes and enter amount. This amount is processed, and then if ATM decides that let me send it to the bank authoritates or accepts or approves the withdrawal and sends to the ATM processes the withdrawal, and the customer gets the cash, and this is the end. That's for activity diagram. So the swim lanes are important. You can't mess them up or miss them up. Let's go to data flow diagram. When it comes to data flow diagram, you have to know the components. The components in data flow diagram are user. This is the user. These are the processes. We have input and output. So when a user wants to interact with the system, whatever the user is putting into the system is an input. So here the user is booking a room. The user has put something into the system, which is an input. This system is going to process the inputs and then gives back to the user confirmation. So here a user books a room, the room processes and gives user a booking number. So user entity inputs something, the system processes the thing and gives back feedback output. And also here the same applies to this place. User logs in to accounts does whatever they will do, and then manage booking is sent to user, and then user pay booking fee, payments processes does whatever they have to do here, and that's it. And then we have the webmaster. The webmaster goes to check status and process information. And after that, here is the data store. The data store comes with data flow charts or data flow diagram where all these data needs to be stored. So with this, the payment details needs to be stored, account details need to be stored, room details needs to be stored, and the webmaster also needs to store whatever it has here, and that gives us data flow charts. When it comes to data flow diagram, they have rules concerning it, that a user or an entity can't just flow to an entity. An entity has to flow through a process, and before an entity can flow, there must be an input to be processed, because nothing will be processed if there's no input. So there needs to be an input to be processed, and after processing, the system has to give the user or the entity feedback. After whatever is done, this process needs to store something. So we have this level, which is just this. We can have just this level, user inputs and outputs, and from the process data is stored, and you have your data flow chart. And this level where we have two or more diagrams is another level. So there is a need for processing. So user can't flow. There can be a flow between user to user. There's always a need for a process, and there's always a need for information to be stored, which is the data store.